episode 14 of The Young Man and the Three, presented by Wonder and 342 Productions. We have a lot to talk about. We have a great interview coming up with Bilal Coulibaly from the Washington Wizards. But before we get that, we are joined by the hottest man in the NBA right now, live from Denver, Colorado, Mr. Trey Murphy. We got a lot to talk about, man.
Yeah, I can't lie. This is a very weird time right now.
Oh, okay. We're gonna get to you in a little bit because there's a lot to talk about there. Let's talk about Saturday night, 12:14 Eastern or whatever it was. I spoke to you after we got the Instagram alert a few minutes afterwards. What your initial thoughts were when you heard about the Luka trade?
So I'm packing up because we are on a 9-game road trip, and I was just making sure I got all my clothes ready for the trip. And one of my homies sent in my video game group chat the graphic from Shams, and I'm just like, all right, this has to be fake. Like, there's no way this is real. And I click, and the caption says, "No, this is 100% real." And I'm like, all right, somebody's really playing around right now because of trade deadline. And then I just saw it everywhere, and it was one of those things where you where you were when it happened. You remember certain things that when Kawhi signed with the Clippers, I remember vividly where I was and what was going on. I think this is one of those moments in NBA history. You're gonna remember where you were at that time.
Yeah, people were comparing it a little bit to the Kawhi signing and the PG trade because they happened at the same time, and it was a thing that I think some of it is the shock of it, actually happening, and then also the fact that it hadn't been telegraphed. It just felt like it came completely out of nowhere. On your initial basketball thought right away was what?
It's tough because my initial thought was I guess for basketball purposes, for Luka's fit with the Lakers, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for today because they already have LeBron, who's an on-ball creator, one of the best in the league. And Austin, he's been growing in his on-ball responsibilities, and he's been doing a really good job in pick and roll, handling the offense when LeBron isn't on the floor. And so now you add Luka Doncic, who's probably arguably the best on-ball creator for himself and for his teammates. And so it's just a lot of on-ball responsibility for the Lakers, but also too, you get a chance at a generational player, top 3 player in the league. You have to take that swing. You have to. There's no saying no to that.
So there's been so much commentary the last couple of days. The one stat I feel like about Luka that kind of sort of stands out above everything else. He's the only player in NBA history who in his first 6 seasons, 10,000 points, 3,000 assists, 3,000 rebounds, while earning 5 first-team All-NBA selections and winning 5 playoff series. And there's a graphic online you can find of everyone else is one of those things they weren't able to do. And he's the only one to do it. I think my question for you, because I think we really want to get into the fits for everybody involved, and then we're gonna talk about the other trade as well. But with the Lakers at first, that's obviously a point that is very valid, and I feel like the Lakers are aware of as well. When you think about Luka, though, and the way he plays, don't you feel like people said this when Dallas traded for Kai as well about the fit? And then also LeBron at the 4 has worked, and so this is not a complete roster. This is not a team that, maybe is a championship threat right away. But do you feel like with certain players like this, they just have the ability to figure it out, and it's almost like the fit becomes a little less relevant?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is their each player's mentality going into it. I think people had mixed reviews about the whole Kyrie and Luka duo because Kyrie had so much on-ball responsibility in Boston and Brooklyn before that, and they forgot that he played with LeBron and he was a second fiddle to LeBron. And Luka and LeBron, there's not really much difference in the way they play other than athleticism, if we're being honest. And so it was easy for me to see them being able to work once they figured out the kinks of, all right, who's going to be aggressive at this time, who's going to be handling the ball, all that stuff. This one, it seems a little different to me because, the off ball game of, LeBron and, I guess Austin Reeves is like the third guy. You just don't see it much often. Like you really don't. And so, and you're not going to take the ball out of Luka's hands. Like I don't even know if I've seen him really off the ball.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's interesting, but also they have a pretty decent coach that
Be careful.
I
Be
think
careful. He doesn't need enough
I,
any more
that's why I
compliments.
said decent. That's why I said decent. That's pretty good offensively. And has a really good offensive mind, and I think he'll figure out ways to, use all three of those guys and make sure their offense is really effective.
I want to get to the AD fit in a second because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there as well. But I had sort of two kind of broad questions now that we've had a couple of days to think about this. And I still feel like, we did an episode earlier today, the one with Bilal. Like, I still feel like people are still processing this. To your point earlier, it's such a shocking move. It's probably the most shocking trade in NBA history. It's one of the more shocking trades in general in sports history and even just the time that it happened. I think my first question for you, and a couple guys have talked about this post game sort of publicly over the last couple of days. Do you feel like it increases the feeling generally among players that like no matter what, anything can happen?
I promise you, that's what it made me think. I'll tell you that right now. I think is a good thing in all honesty for a league. It was almost like a little bit of stagnation. Like you would know, like, all right, this guy, like they're on the trade market, they have an expiring deal. Oh, they're unhappy. Like, okay, he's probably gonna get traded. Like stuff like this now, it keeps people on their toes, and I think it makes people a little more alert to like, all right, I need to make sure I try to handle my business because I get traded, or the fact of the matter, like I could be handling my business, still get traded, so I'm not like caught off guard because I promise you, if you would have told me 2 weeks ago that Luka Doncic was going to get traded, I would have been like, "You're crazy." And I don't even know, like, there's not even a player that I could have been like, "Oh yeah, like that makes sense." Like, I think that's why like a lot of guys in the NBA are, you know, a little like on edge a little bit.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Just talking to people around the league. I mean, we're taping this Tuesday night. There's a few, 2 more days till the deadline. Some of these are people, like our sort of friends. Some of them are your teammates. Whatever. This is everybody though. It feels like even the teams in these trades are not necessarily like this is done. They're kind of like the one shoe is dropped and they don't know. I agree with you though. That's good for the NBA. I mean, think about this. This is Tuesday of Super Bowl week. And the last 3 days, everyone's been talking about an NBA trade. Like no
That's
one's
it.
talking. No, I mean no one's talking about the Super Bowl. Now it'll
I
get to
got
that by the
people.
weekend.
I got people I ain't heard from in so long talking about, oh, that. What you think about that trade, bro? Are you serious?
Yeah,
Like I haven't heard from you in 5 years. Is this what you want to come to me and talk about?
and him in LA from a marketing standpoint is gonna be crazy. Like I,
Just just for the future, like the next 10 years, you have, or however long Luca plays, like you have a star in LA. Like it's gonna be Braun literally passing the torch to Luca, and it's just like it's almost like storybook in a
yeah.
way. Like you got a guy like mentoring, grooming him into becoming the next star.
So I have another question. Jason is somewhere face down in New Orleans, so he's not joining us for this. But I think he would have this question, and I'm curious your perspective on this playing, but then also just being a sports fan overall. Do you understand why Mavs fans are so upset?
Absolutely, no, absolutely,
Because they're really like,
because
this is a different level. Yeah, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt, but this feels like a different level than a normal trade.
no, absolutely, because the biggest thing is like casual NBA fans, they don't understand every single little intricacy that goes into, you know, team building as well as like foresight. I think that's the biggest thing that people aren't, thinking of is that the CBA has made teams like they have to change their way of thinking because you have to think in foresight. You have to think about, all right, what is my team going to like in 2026, 27 or 2027, 28? I got to project, okay, this guy is going to be good. So I might have to pay him this. And so then if I give this other guy a super max, then I'm not going to have enough money to pay my guy. So it's like you have to really think ahead and try to guess like where your team's going to be. And I don't think like a casual NBA fan is not going to understand that. Shoot, some NBA players probably don't understand that. And so, I definitely understand that Dallas fans are sad because Luka Doncic was somebody that brought people from the hood in Dallas, it brought people from the country in Dallas all together.
Yeah.
And they all like surrounded through Luka. Like you would see all different types of people with Luka Doncic jerseys in the crowd.
Yeah, and I also feel like, and maybe some of this is because of the Dirk, Dirk's history there as well. He was drafted by the team. He's a homegrown guy. He's had all of this success there. There's so much player movement now. I mean, you're going through this a little bit. You haven't, gone to the finals yet. Knock on wood, it'll be soon, but like you're in a spot where like this is your first team, so you're in a spot where like it's the same thing sort of like with the Pelicans fans where they get to grow with you and it's not like, this is your fourth spot and you've, won a little bit. So there feels like an element of, besides the shock of, it's like you've taken away a child from us. Some of the like the people protesting with the coffin outside the arena and everything, like that doesn't normally happen with trades, no matter how big they are.
No, no, and that's one thing I like over probably like the past like 2 months or so. Is felt like New Orleans is really like just embraced me, and it's like I've really grown up here. Like I just think about my times when I first got drafted and how much of a kid I was, and now like I've grown. I'm not gonna say I'm grown, but I've grown up here in New Orleans. They've loved me every step of the way, and it's just like New Orleans has a special place in my heart. And so I can understand even Luka's feelings. Like if you look at him during the press conferences, he just looks sad. Like, and that doesn't take a psychologist to see that. Like he looks sad. Like if you look at his body language and the way he's answering the questions, because he grew up there. Like that's the place that took him in, and they loved him. So
Yeah. Yeah, I want to talk about the AD fit in Dallas for a second, because it does feel like it's a thing that is being swept aside a little bit. I mean, you can't. We could do an hour just on AD's accomplishments himself. It's like 10-time All-Star, 4-time first team All NBA. Has been one of the best bigs in the league since he's come into the league. How you see that fit working out with their current roster? It's a team that you now have a little bit of a rivalry with, but I feel like very well on a personnel basis. And so where he fits there, outside of the emotion of this actually happening, they clearly did this, and they said this in their press conferences because they're like, we're going to win right away. I mean, this was not a long-term move. This was we think this team can win a championship this year. And so I'm curious, just like on a personnel level, how you feel like it fits.
yeah, first of all, I want to make sure we say AD is not a bum, and it's crazy. Like it just shows how good Luka Doncic is because they traded for AD, who is probably the best the defensive big in pick and roll, also one of the best lob threats, post scorers in the NBA. And people were like, "Oh, Dallas lost a trade. It's a bad trade." Blah blah. This and that, third. Like AD is still a top 10, 15 player in the league. Like that is insane, insane. But to speak about fit now, I would say that it's a really good fit in my opinion because, like I've talked about before, like the playoffs is all about matchup diversity, and so if AD is able to play the four, Gaff is able to play the five, and now you have Kyrie on the floor with a bunch of other wing defenders and people that can score the ball as well. That's a really tough lineup to score on, as
Yeah.
well as stop too, because now you can't have one person on AD covering him. So when you double team him and there's swing, guys are hitting open shots, like it's going to be a really tough team to stop on the offensive end. And then defensively is going to be really tough to score on them too. And then also you can get back into the AD at the five, with second units and have him, you know, running the offense, all that stuff. So they just have a lot of matchup fluidity with their team now.
Well, and he's talked publicly about, wanting to play the four more. You mentioned Gafford, obviously D Live, our boy as well. Like they're just going to be big as hell. They have a lot of options to go big. They just traded for Caleb Martin today, who's just another sort of addition there. And then I guess to your point as well, it's like when you have that kind of versatility in the front court and you have Kyrie, you can understand the logic of it for sure. I think thing that just objectively speaking, and you can no comment on this if you want, but like the thing that people are shocked about is, besides the fact that it was Luka, is the fact that they didn't call anybody else, because they could have gotten 10,000 picks from somebody else, and so they didn't open up to anybody else. And then also just that it was it was done so quickly with this team, where it's basically a 1-for-1 trade. And we talk about the future. I mean, they're different ages, they're in different stages of their career. It's like it's understandable too. We were saying before why this has caused so many shockwaves. But I think what we both agree on is like the Mavs could be really good. This was not something where they did not trade for somebody who they've traded for someone who has proven he can win a championship. And was just on Team USA this year winning a gold medal. It's a big reason why they won a gold medal. So like this wasn't, I don't really, I think it's kind of disingenuous when people make these comps to like, Rudy Gobert got traded for 4 first-round picks or whatever it is. But it's like, yeah, but AD wasn't in the trade. Like there's a big distinction that people seem to just be kind of like willfully leaving out. But that's
5 first-round picks also. Let's make sure to get that right. Rudy Gobert was traded for 5 first-round picks.
Our boy Kale, I called you with Kale the other night when this happened. Let's move on to the other trade. Yeah, let's move on to the other trade very quickly, and then we're going to talk about you. De'Aaron Fox, San Antonio, it felt like it couldn't live up to the craziness of Saturday, but it's obviously still a huge deal. I think my question for you about, he's been a great player since he's been in the league. He's having a great season this year again. His fit, his speed, how it matches up with how Wemby likes to play. Just how you sort of see how that meshing.
Yeah, I mean, just overall 2-man game is going to be really, really tough to stop, because Fox is going to get downhill.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But Fox is getting downhill, with the best of them, and then Wemby's popping, and he can pop out to damn near 40 feet. And so you have to. It's really tough to pick your poison on that. Like, you see the way that Jokic and Murray run their 2-man game. I think that Wemby and Fox will be able to really master that in their time for now. Like, it'll be tough to really see it in fruition this year. I think that this year will be just, trying to get chemistry going, try to build, for the future. But next year, I think it'll be really, really tough to stop them.
Do you think he's at an advantage at all? Fox is being left-handed in terms of the lob threat. Does that give him this, or is it really basically the same?
Yeah, it's the same. With Wemby, you could be left-handed, right-handed. You could probably kick it into the air, and he'll find a way to catch the ball.
Just throw it up.
Yeah, right. It don't even really matter.
Okay, there's going to be a lot more that's going to happen this week. So before we move on to Bilal, we should talk about your last couple games. First of all, your last 20 games, averaging 25.8 points per game, 66% true shooting, 51, 42, 89. Only 10 times in NBA history has a player had 40-point back-to-back games with 8 threes. Last one was 2001. Pell's Film Room did that on Twitter. Shout out to them. There's a lot of crazy stats about this. Even Drew, our boy Drew Hanlon, who always shits on you and never has anything nice to say, he actually doesn't have any criticism of you in the last week, which is probably
not that you've heard. I've definitely heard the criticism already. So.
Okay, so he has no public criticism of you.
There we go.
So walk us through, I feel like, just the flow state that you mentioned that you've been in and how you feel like this is coming together.
Yeah, we had a road trip, and it was who did we play? Can't remember. But we had a back-to-back. I didn't play great in the first game. Oh, we played Memphis. Played okay that game. Charlotte played terrible. I was back home, and I really wanted that game a lot. Like, I had probably 50 people from my school come, and then 30 family members. So I really wanted to get that game, but didn't play well at all. And then we played in Toronto and didn't play well at all. And I was talking to my OG, one of my vets, Garrett Temple, and I was like, yeah, like these last couple just ain't been great. He's like, yeah, you've been kind of off, and I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know why. Like when he said that, kind of like lit something into me, and I was like, okay, all right, like I see where this is going, and I just took my off day, really just like relaxed, got away from basketball, which is super important for like I will stress this to all NBA players.
You play your game.
Take your off day. Take your off day.
You play your Call of Duty for 9 hours.
Okay, bro. We don't need to talk about what I do with my off day. Just worry about me taking my off day.
I'm trying to get you a Call of Duty sponsorship. I feel like this is a positive thing. You do it. That's a nice thing.
Hey, put me in the field. If y'all want to make a skin for me, put me in the field. I'm with it. I play Call of Duty all the time. So
okay, so you take on your off day. You're locking in the game.
And then, I just went back into the next game, and I think it's just unwavering confidence. Like, I just feel like every time I shoot the ball is going to go in. And so I think that, I don't know if it's not irrational. I don't think it's very irrational. I just think I have a lot of confidence in myself and the work I put in. And so those last couple of games, I was just out there just trying to hoop. And then the Boston game, when DeJounte went down, like it broke me down. Like I was really, really hurt by that, especially because all the stuff he's been going through this season and, off the court, on the court, it's been really tough. And then to see him go through something like that, especially for a guy who's so solid like he is, it really, really hurt me. And so that whole game, I was just trying to play for him and, just really wanted to get a win for him and play well because I know it's a really tough position to be in. Like that's really sad, really scary. So
yeah, it's brutal, and obviously prayers and best wishes to him. And that Boston game in particular, those are I thought what was so impressive about it, and kind of shocking about it in certain ways is like they were throwing the sink at you with these guys with the best defensive guards and wings in the league, and it sort of felt like nothing was changing your approach at all. And that is hard for anybody. It's hard for an all-star to have to to sort of deal with those guys,
Yeah,
and so that
what's funny is they like started blitzing me around like third quarter, and Willie was like, "Congratulations, you finally got your first blitz." Like it's showing you're moving up in the league a little bit. And I was like, "Yeah, dang! Like this is first time like I've been hooping, and guys were like, all right, we need to get the ball out of his hand." So like it just shows like
you never have had that. You've never felt like you've had the blitz.
No,
Really?
no, people didn't blitz me. I was in the corner catching and shooting. They don't blitz the corner.
Yeah, but you've had various games where you've gone off for 40, 38, whatever it is. There was never a period where they just were like, fuck it, we're not going to let this dude beat us. Just blitz him to just kind of like shut him up.
No, they would just deny me the ball, but I wasn't coming up ball screens and stuff like that. So now that I'm actually coming off of pick and rolls and making plays for myself, making plays for others, they've been in a lot more blitzes recently.
That's a nice compliment.
Yeah, I know. It's like, dang, okay, all right, cool. Like I'm kind of nice. Like I'm kind of nice.
Okay. I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We're gonna get to our conversation with Bilal. Trey's got another game in Denver tomorrow night, so we hope this streak continues. And we will be back after the deadline. We'll see where everyone is. I think I'm fairly confident you're going to be in the same place, but I can't say the same for some of our friends. Knock on wood.
You never know, bro. You never know. You never know.
Bilal,
yep.
Welcome to the Young Man in the Three. It's been a long time coming, I feel like. The first question I kind of wanted to start with, you've had 6 months of pro basketball before you got drafted. What has this overall experience just been like for you? Just like, sort of like looking back on the last couple of years from a process standpoint.
Man, it was great. Started the year playing with the guys my age, 18, 20, something like that. But yeah, after 6 months, I went with the senior team, the Pro A team. And it was a great experience, playing against grown men. I had to be tougher, learn a lot about myself, about my teammates, how to play in a great team, in a tough team, because we went to the finals and everything. So, it was a great experience.
Does it feel like this is just like not a huge amount of time that has passed since you were not playing professionally and you've accomplished so much in that window? Do you feel that in real time? Do you sort of like feel what you've accomplished, or are you still in the period where you're kind of like taking it day by day?
Yeah, I take it day by day, but sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, it was like 2 years ago. Yeah, I was playing against guys my age, and everything went by so fast, man. I'm really grateful.
I want to get into a lot of the background stuff, because I feel like you talked about it in some interviews you've done. You talked about it a little bit around the Olympics last year, but I'm not sure that everybody sort of even knows some of your backstory in terms of just your growth spurt and just how you sort of came to the game overall. Can you kind of walk us through the sort of like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, how this all came to be, in terms of just who you are as a player, who you are as a person, everything?
Oh yeah, two different persons, man. Before the pandemic, I was a short guard, point guard.
Like how short?
I was like probably not even 6 foot, like 5'10", 5'11", and yeah, after that, like it took me 5 months to be like 6'2", 6'3". And during that year, when we came back and played basketball during that year, I grew up like from 6'2" to 6'5", and I kept growing. Now I'm 6'8". So that year was crazy,
So was that 5'10" to 6'8" over the course of like a year? Like what was the amount of time?
Yeah, 5'10" to 6'8", I'll say probably like 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But the craziest one was in the summer. I went from like 6'4" to 6'6". So yeah, that was the craziest one. Came back. Yeah, I came back. I was taller than everybody. Everybody was like, "Man, what'd you do?"
So your dad played. Did you have an expectation? Like, did you think you were gonna be tall, or was it something where you kind of just were like, "Oh crap!" Like all of a sudden, my clothes don't fit.
Yeah, I didn't know because my dad's not that tall. He's like 6'3", good size, but not that tall. It's my grandfather. He's like 6'6". So yeah, I probably took it from him.
How did it change? There's always been, Anthony Davis is a famous example of this, but there's been a lot of these stories of guys who've grown late, and because they sort of like, they were playing guard their whole life, they kept that coordination. Even Jaren Jackson was like that to a certain extent as well. Did you feel like you had that, or was it something where when you grew, you had to change the way that you were playing?
I didn't change the way I was playing immediately. I was still playing the point guard and everything, but at some point, coaches and we talked about it, and I was like, I should just move to the 2, be probably a combo guard.
Yeah.
And it worked out well. So I kept doing it, and that's what I am now.
Who were you watching when you were growing up play?
Oh, I watched a lot of Miami Heat, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Kyrie, when LeBron went to Cleveland, because I was a big LeBron fan when I was younger, when I started. So I was watching these two teams.
Were there any sort of specific, whether it was like moves, like specific things that they were doing that as you were starting to play more competitively, you would try to emulate?
Yeah, when I was younger, I was a big spin move guy, so I was watching a lot of D Wade. It was the goal for me, and on that spin move. So I was like, that spin move, I had it from him.
What's funny with the D Wade stuff, we did a couple episodes with him, but he like. I think the last one we did with him, he was talking about when he retired, which is now a couple years ago, and he was basically like, he knew he had to retire because of guys like you. And he mentioned Fox. Like at that point you weren't playing, but he was like, guys like you. He was basically like, I started doing this, and then it was guys who were doing the same stuff as me, but
10 times faster.
10 times faster. And I'm just like, I have my run. Like I'm good. Like,
No, that's crazy. Yeah, that boy Fox is so quick, man.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's too.
It's insane. Even me, like I'm pretty fast, but playing against him, I'm like, man, he's like a step ahead of everybody.
I was gonna ask you later about the leaping in particular, because it's a thing that they have a whole tracking. They really have tracked that you're the best leaper in the NBA.
Really?
But also the quickness. Who else do you sort of like look at in terms of like other guys who you're just like, this is a foot race is coming, and maybe I'm not gonna lose, but like it's gonna be close.
I say probably this year it was Jaron Fox for sure, because even last year, like I remember I tried to pick him up full court and he drove past me and had a easy layup. So yeah, I remember that forever. But yeah, him and Anthony Edwards, he's really like explosive, whenever he gets to that left hand, he's just so quick. That's crazy.
Is there something a guy like Fox is so good at this in terms of just the quickness, but then also just like the acceleration, the decel, the just keeping people off balance all the time. Is that something that you just kind of like, you feel like you learn with experience, or is it just you sort of knew like overall you always had to do it and you've kind of forced yourself to do?
Yeah, I knew I had to do it, but you got to work on that because it's not easy, going from full speed to stop and goes are not that easy. So yeah, I work a lot on my body for that. It's something you got to work on.
Mets, pre-NBA, obviously. Were any other sports on the table?
I was starting with
You're sitting here in a PSG jersey, so this is partially what I'm curious about.
I never played soccer that seriously. I was just playing with my friends. I was supposed to play soccer actually, but there were no more spots, so that's how I started basketball actually. So that's crazy.
So I read this. There was a thing they wrote an article about you before the Olympics. Some website wrote an article and they said that. And I was going to ask you whether that was true.
Yeah, it is. It is
because I feel like they're doing fine on that side of things in football in France. But I also feel like somebody probably messed up.
Yeah, but when I was younger, soccer was the main sport in France. So my mom wanted me to play soccer, and there were no more spots. So I started basketball and I loved it. So I kept going. So
you just were like, once you got into it, you were like, there was no, because I'm kind of curious about this in general. Like these guys were just over in Paris for the games over there. And I've talked about this with Joakim a couple weeks ago because he just went there as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's hard to say that basketball is ever going to pass football in France with how much of an institutional thing it is. But I am kind of curious about, like, as more and more of your peers are sort of starting to come over and have success there and then come over here, if there's going to be more cases of people who are like you when you're 14, who are like, oh, I'm picking basketball over this, knowing that they could win a World Cup.
Yeah, I feel like it's already starting, man. A lot of my, even cousins, they started playing football and everything, and they saw me getting to the NBA, and they watching everything on the, the social medias. So they're like, hey, I want to do this too, So yeah, most of them switched. They went to basketball now. So I feel like everybody's going to
Is any of it also just kind of like, I'm just trying to think about like the height component of it too, of like who like at a certain point, if you are obviously, there's you and Victor who are, very tall, but like, even if you're 6'4", 6'5", it becomes a thing where it may be like the decision is made for you to a certain extent. Like,
I agree with that. Yeah.
So when you were pre-draft, you're playing for the Mets. At what point in that experience did you start to feel, not like you're never fully comfortable, you're always learning, you're always growing. But at what point did you start to feel like, because of this all was happening so fast, that even the NBA was a possibility, that there was a world where that you could be coming over here and doing it?
It came pretty late. I'll say right before the playoffs, because I started to get like consistent minutes, starting 5. So I had my place in the group, and during the playoffs, the lottery went by, so we knew who had the first pick, and we knew they were about to take Victor. So when I kept seeing teams like Sacramento, LA, Washington, everybody coming, I was like, man, it might be for me. So I better work now.
Well, it's the gift of having a teammate who everyone's coming to see, is they're going to watch you too. And so you're going to get that perspective. I also feel like there was I remember we even were talking about this at the time. Like, everybody who would go to your games would come back. Like, they knew how good he was. Like, that was not exactly like a hot take, but they would come back and they would also be like, oh yeah. And
him is pretty good too.
But you kind of had to see it. It was a thing that you didn't, because the game, although they were putting the games on TV here by the end, and it was getting on, all over social media and everything like that by the end, there was still like if you're not watching the full game, you might not actually understand, like, oh, this isn't just one guy and then a bunch of, sort of non-pros. Like this
Mhm.
is a guy with a bunch of teammates who are going to be playing, I feel like, at the highest level.
Yeah, we had a lot of young guys, guys who played in the league for like a year or two. Yeah, everybody was playing pretty good. So yeah, all the teams were there.
I don't want to sidetrack you this by asking about the Luka trade, just because I am curious about your perspective on it. But we did an episode with Luka. We did a couple of them, but we did one a couple of years ago, and he was talking about the Real experience, and he was talking about playing in Europe in general. And he said he was just a matter of fact. He was like, it was easier to score. It's easier to score in the NBA than it was in Europe. Now, for you guys play differently and everything like that, but just like your transition from that experience, from just like like a physicality level, did you feel like there were things that, not like easier in the NBA, but there were things that you were maybe like, oh, this was really tough over there, and I got here, and I'm not as surprised as I would have been?
Yeah, I agree with that. Because, yeah, like you said, first of all, the physicality was way different. And the main thing is like the court is even bigger here. So you got more space to drive, the open court feels like way more open. In France, yeah, the court is not that big. Everybody's in the shift spots. You can't drive by somebody and just get to the rim. The rules are different too. Defensively, you can stay in the paint. So yeah, that's way different. It's tougher to score, I'll say.
So you just get used to getting beaten up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like that's the thing. That's the FIBA experience that the Americans are not always, we talk about that a lot. They're not always ready for it. It's like, no matter how gifted you are, if you haven't lived through that.
It's different, man. Even December, you could see it in the Olympics, it was tough. Like everybody was fighting for real.
So I want to get to the Olympic stuff in a bit, but with you, when you were pre NBA, did you start to feel like that was when you made the decision that you're like actually going to come? Did you have any second thoughts? Did you have any doubts? Did you have any like, oh, I need to stay here longer? Or were you just like, I'm sort of ready to go?
Oh, no, I wanted to come and play immediately. So yeah, I had no second thoughts.
What was the draft night like?
Oh, it was a great experience, man. I didn't know where I was going. I had only one workout with Washington actually. And yeah, so I was waiting. I was like, man, I don't know. I'll probably go 8. I'll probably go 20 seconds. So yeah, we'll just see. And yeah, when I see like 7 pick, all the cameras were coming to my table. I was like, man, that's my turn. That's crazy. I couldn't believe it, man. Yeah, that was a great night. The greatest night.
Because everyone I feel like has they have a little bit of a different perspective on it, where sometimes people are like, their whole life they've been like, not their whole life, but most of their life they've been like, I'm going to play in the NBA. Mm-hmm. So when it happens, it's a matter of fact moment. Yeah. It's like, all right, now I'm going to go live in this city.
Exactly.
Versus when you talk about like your growth, and you even talk about not growing up here or being here or anything like that. When you see the cameras coming over, do you have any part of you that is out of body experience at all? It just feels like this is not real.
Yeah. I'm just looking at everybody at my table, like my mom, my sisters, my friend, my dad, and everybody was like in shock. Nobody could believe it. I didn't even realize it until the next day when I went to Washington. So yeah, it was just crazy.
I was going to ask you, where had you been in the U.S. before the draft?
The year before the Mets, we had a game in Vegas.
In Vegas, yeah, the famous.
That was the first time I went to the States, so that's all I did. Yeah.
So you've never been to DC, never been to New York?
Never.
So I have a bunch of follow-up questions about that, but about the Vegas game, was that game the moment where, we did a episode with Victor right before the draft, and we talked about this with him a little bit as well. Was that the moment where you started to feel like everything in the U.S. kind of started to blow up with the whole, just with him, but then even with the team overall?
Yeah. I saw like how big it was for all the Americans and everything. I was watching the socials, like everybody was talking about it. The NBA was talking about it. I was like, man, there's something to do over there.
American cities. Now that we're taping this in New York in February. But now that you've had a little bit of, you've had a bunch of road trips, you've basically gotten to experience the entire league.
Yeah.
Are there places you've enjoyed going the most? Are there things you've liked to do on the road that it's always funny to kind of have like for the first year, everywhere you're going is your first time going in. So you'll have experiences places that most people, even if they don't live there, but they've been there 20 times, just take for granted. So is there anything you've like really liked doing that you were kind of surprised by?
Yeah, actually, I just like to shop when I go to different cities, you know. So I love New York for that. I like Miami for the weather. And yeah, these are my two favorite teams. But I really like Toronto. Toronto is one of my favorite cities too.
Well, Toronto is such a global. Toronto has a lot of Paris, I feel like, in it too.
Yeah, exactly. And you got all the culture, you know. Spanish people, French people, everything. So I love it.
And we'll do some Wizard stuff in a bit. But just for DC overall, your experience. We were talking about this before we started taping. Your experience just being acclimated to the city. I mean, it's a really interesting place.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot going on there all the time.
Yeah.
So when you get down to DC after draft night, you're like, I'm going to be here. You're meeting your teammates. You're getting sort of like, ready basketball wise. What are you starting to do in DC? Are you doing anything off the court that you're having fun with?
Yeah, my family was there, and we heard that there were a lot of museum, historical places and everything. So, we just went for a walk, you know, went to see the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, White House. We were just like watching everything we saw on movies. So yeah, it was crazy.
Do you feel like this is when Americans go to Paris, you have the reverse?
Exactly.
Just they come over there and they're taking photos of everything?
Exactly. My mom was like, "Oh, take me a picture in front of this, in front of this." I was like, "Man, that's crazy."
You're like, "I live here now."
Yeah,
like,
I live here. I see this every day.
You can come
now.
here whenever you want.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's are there any other, like, I guess like LA, you don't really, LA's not, I mean, there's like the Hollywood sign, but there's not that many like tourist spots, really.
Yeah, not really. LA is so big too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I had a good like dinner, you know, good places to eat and everything.
Do you feel like you're getting, now that, you know, you're into this portion of your second season, do you feel like you're getting used to the grind?
Yeah, for sure. That first year everything was just like new, you know, where even like the hotel we were staying in, I was just like learning about everything about the NBA and everything. And now that I came for my second year, I was just used to it, you know. Came in the cities. I know what hotel we staying in. I know who we playing. I know how to get ready. I had my routine. So yeah, everything's just like way easier now.
Did you have it's become like a question that everybody asks. So like I'm curious, but I also like the welcome to the NBA moment. But did you also have a moment where you were like, I think one of the things that a lot of the young guys, when they're coming in, they have to get used to is it's unlike even like college in the States, or maybe what it was like with the Mets, where it's like, okay, you play, you know, LeBron Tuesday night, then you play Victor Wednesday night, then Friday night you play James Harden. Like there's just no stopping. You're in a league where you're like, you're in the big leagues for a reason. And so did you have a stretch like that where you were like, not overwhelmed, but you were just a little bit like, it becomes taxing at a certain point?
Oh yeah. I say last year, my first West road trip, you know, on the West Coast, it was crazy. You know, I played LA 2 times, LA Clippers, Lakers. And, you know, they have all those big players like KD in Phoenix. We had LeBron in LA, Kawhi with the Clippers. It was like, man, and I've been on the best player every time. So I was like, man, every night is a tough night, a long night. But yeah, I learned a lot last year. I loved it, man.
Did you have one dude who, and this could be this year too, but you have one dude who like just like lived up to the hype, where you were just like, shit, like you might have done a good job on him, but you were just like, this was not fun. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah. I'll say this year, actually, Jalen Brunson, oh my God, it was crazy. He just like made everything. I was playing solid defense, but he had just so many counters. He could get to the rim whenever he wanted. That floater was cash every time. I was like, man, what am I supposed to do?
Well, he keeps his footwork. His footwork is just insane.
Insane.
So no matter what, he was doing this last night to Houston. They basically were like, and they're throwing guys like you at him, and they couldn't. He just took over in the last.
Man, he's so tough, so strong. Man, he's really nice.
Did you have one like that last year?
Oh yeah, it was Brandon Ingram. Just because it was so tall, you know, I was contesting everything, but it was just shooting over me, so couldn't do anything about it.
Is that so? At a certain point, I mean, I feel like this is part of the natural progression, is understanding like sometimes it's just their night. And you're just, all you got to do is do your thing,
Exactly.
but you can't, unless you're going to foul them, unless you're going to take yourself out of the game. Like you just got to deal with it.
Just got to be as tough as possible, man.
So when we're coming off, you guys are on a 2-game winning streak right now, but you've been, had a great game last night, obviously. As your offensive game is growing, I mean, I think that everybody has sort of known, since you came into the league, what the upside was and what the potential is. As your offensive game is growing, do you have a particular focus and sort of emphasis for the next 3 months in terms of like what you feel like you want to improve on, what you feel like you can be more consistent in?
Yeah, I can definitely be more consistent on being aggressive, going to the rim a lot more because every time I go to the rim, something does happen. Like even though I'm getting fouled, I get a bucket, I can pass the ball, play make for everybody. So yeah, I'll say just being more aggressive. Yeah, I
feel like every player treats this differently in terms of how they get themselves into the game a little bit. Like it also depends on the position. Like certain point guards will want to get everybody involved for the first quarter, and then they'll pick their spot. They'll be like, all right, second quarter comes. Do you feel like you found that sweet spot where you were like, I need to take 5 shots in the first quarter to get myself going? Or are you still kind of like, I'm going to feel it out like night by night?
I kind of know what I got to do now. For me, it starts with the defense, getting a couple stops, pushing the ball in transition, finding my teammates. Just finding my rhythm. After that, getting like easy layup at first, and after that, I'm going like. So
last year you were your rookie year, your top 10 in for rookies in blocks and steals, and it was like I was saying, it was very clear just defensively, what was there. So what you were just saying just now, do you feel like you can turn yourself up just with like a couple defensive plays, or if maybe you've started off and you're not shooting great or whatever it is, and then you just like rip somebody or you block a shot or something like that, all of a sudden you're going?
Yeah, exactly. That's what gets me going. Just like, taking the ball from somebody or getting a good block. I mean, my teammates are cheering for it. Like every time I get a block or something, they just like, it just makes me feel confident.
Yeah. So this is the stat I was saying before. So they did a thing, I don't know who calculated this, but they did the quickest leapers in the league. And they said it was the fastest to get to 24 inches, basically. Right. So they did your number one in the league at 194 milliseconds. Then Amen is number 2.
Yeah.
Derek Jones is 3. Shaden Sharp is 4. Ja is 5. Even like looking back as we look, did you do anything to practice explosiveness? Like, is there anything you trained for?
Just get in the weight room, work on my legs, work my physio, on my mobility and everything. But I never really worked on my like bounce, It's just like kind of like that. Yeah.
It just comes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing, which is, I mean, I feel like all these guys are different. They all play differently. But there is a level of like we did this. Remember we did this with Derek Jones once a couple years ago. He is another one. He's a freak. This was kind of a random story, but we were, I forget who he was playing for at that point, but there was this trend going around TikTok where people would go and dunk on people would be playing like pickup in their backyard, and then somebody would run out of a car and go and dunk on them, basically, which is kind of a weird, almost like risky thing to do, but it was happening.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And so he was in LA, I was in LA, and we got together and we were with Jason, our friend Jason, who works with us. And basically, we were like, we should go do this. Mm-hmm. And he was his idea. He's like, we should go do this. We're like, okay. And so basically, we just drove around LA.
That's
he
crazy.
Just went, and I'll send you the video. He basically went and just dunks on 2 dudes at the park in LA.
I need to see that. And just
gets back in the car, gets going. And I was just like, there was no stretch. There was no warm up. There was no anything. He just crazy. Got up.
He's crazy. That's funny because last time we played the Clippers, I had that crazy action. I don't know. JP threw me a lot from the half court, and I made the dunk, and we went on the free throw line like a couple plays after, and he was like, "Man, you were so athletic." I was looking at him. I was like, "Bro, don't tell me that. Not you. Like you're the freakiest one." Like, come on.
It's like Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, I was like, "Stop, man."
What about your experience with this team now? There's Alex is obviously, having a great rookie year. There's a lot of talent. Bub's been great. Jordan, go up and down. It's like there's a lot of talent on the team, but at the same point, like we were saying before, the NBA is the NBA.
Yeah.
And so as you're putting into your perspective, like being on a team that's rebuilding and a team that's on its way up and you're living through it, what are you doing to kind of, focus on the team, but then also focus on yourself and keep your sort of morale at the place that it needs to be?
Yeah, man. I work every day, I think that's the main thing. Work every day, talk to my teammates a lot, especially the young guys, the rookies, because I know it's not easy, because last year I was losing a lot too. Sometimes it was getting into my head. I was like, man, what's happening? Like, I don't know what's happening. I can't do anything about it. But we were building, like you say. So it's a process. Everybody got to stay lock in. Everybody got to still work in. That's what I'm trying to tell the rookies. And they've been doing a great job on that. And I feel like in a couple of years, we're going to be like really good.
Yeah. I also feel like the nice thing with you guys now is it's like they say about growing pains, but you're kind of growing through it together, where you don't have, it's not a team full of like older guys who like have different goals and it's just not working. It's like you all can kind of understand, like, okay, this is a, not apples to apples example, but even this happened with the Thunder a couple of years ago, where Shea was kind of just like, get us now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I keep telling them.
In 2 years, it might be different. Exactly. And so keeping that mentality basically of like, just avoiding some of the outside noise and kind of focusing on what you can control.
Yeah, that's why I keep telling them. There's so many teams that have been through it. Even Orlando, how good they are now. I'm like, we just gotta keep trusting each other.
This summer, walk us through the whole experience. There was a lot happening. So just like from the beginning to end, highlights, your favorite parts, unexpected good parts, like just what you will sort of remember the most about the entire sort of 8-week process.
Oh, it was a lot going on. Coming into the tournament, man, we were not really good. It was really tough. We were learning about each other still. We had a couple first 2-3 games. We had a tough game against Japan, and we came out with a win with a clutch shot by my shoes Trezor, my guy. But it was a tough game. And after that game, we were like, man, we gotta do something. Like,
Japan was tough. There were people being like, oh, this might not.
Oh, it was crazy, man. It was crazy. The last possessions, I was on the bench watching the game, and I was like, man, it feels like a movie. That's so crazy. But it was a great experience, like I said, after those first 3 games, we talked a lot between us, just players. We were like, man, we're in Paris, hometown. We gotta kill it. Like, we can't keep going like that. So Nicolas Batum, he's been doing a great job on that, talking to everybody. After that, we were just killing it, man. Everybody was great.
So I was gonna ask about Nico. I was gonna ask about Evan is another one. Rudy, like the guys that have been through this before, because we know how talented you are. We know how talented Vic is. We know, but at the same point, like, this is an experience. There's a lot mentally that's happening, having to deal with all of the swirling thoughts, much less having to go, play Canada, play the US, everything like that. So talk about their sort of their mental strength, like the leadership they're able to pass down to you. And then also it's like, obviously a guy like Evan's hitting big shot after big shot. So it's not just, they're not sitting on the end of the bench doing it. They're also playing.
They were playing.
But just what comes with that experience of learning how to basically manage everything that's happening at the time and kind of block out the noise while also being, motivated by the experience.
Yeah, I learned a lot during the tournament. Like, Nico for me was the real leader. He was talking on and off the court, and he was playing too, and he was playing hard, like offensively, defensively, guarding the best players, doing the toughest thing every night. So I had a lot of respect for him, because he's just like shows how to be a real leader, and he was doing it each and every night.
Did you feel like the Canada game was a turning point? I remember I was in Paris, and I went to the semis and finals because it was the Americans were both back to back.
Yeah.
And the Canada game I wasn't at. I was watching. I was on the river, and they had one of those outdoor screens set up. And I was watching, and people were like, I feel like the people of the city started to understand, even though you started off hot, they started to understand, like, at some point in the second half, like, oh, this is actually happening. And then Evan kept hitting those big shots.
Yeah.
And they started going crazy. Did that feel like a thing on the team that felt like a turning point a little bit?
Definitely, man. After that game in the locker room, we're just so hyped. Like everybody was like, man, you see, when we play good, what can happen? Like we lost to Canada like twice before the tournament. We had those friendly games. And coming to this game, we were like, man, we can't lose that one. Like, yeah, we got to do everything possible to win that game. And Evan was hitting tough shots. Nico was playing tough defense on Shea. It was the best game for me.
I don't mean to bring up a negative memory, but the Steph experience as an opponent, only because part of why I want this. I'm curious about this as your perspective playing against him, but then also, we did it when we brought back this show with the sort of like rotating group. The first episode we did was with President Obama, and Tyrese Halliburton was with me, and he was doing the interview, and Obama basically said. He said on the show and he said off the show, he's like, Steph is his friend. He's known him for a long time. He's like, I've never seen anything like that. And I feel like anyone we've talked to on the American side of things, these are all the best American players, some of the best American players of all time. They're all like, never seen anything like that. As someone who is, you played against him a few times in the pros, but the stakes of that were a lot different than a random game in DC in January. So as an opponent there, what are you thinking?
Man, it was so crazy. Like, when he hit that first shot, I was like, man, we better not let him get another one up. Because if he makes the second one, man, he's going to be so tough to stop him because he's going to take everything. And so he took everything and made all of them. So, yeah, that third shot, when he shot over like two guys, I was like, man, what is happening, man? What is happening? We were so close. And we were like down 3, and all of a sudden we were down 10. I was like, man. He literally just killed us just like that. Yeah. So
is he, when we're talking about Jalen earlier, and we're talking about some of these, the guys around the league who it's like at a certain point, you just kind of like throw your hands up. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that he's in that category of there's just, if he's hitting like this, like you just hope.
Yeah, you just hope. Exactly. You just hope, man. Actually, the nights when I was like the most tired were against him, because even when he doesn't have the ball, he's just not standing in the corner or everything. He's just sprinting around. Everybody's looking for him. So yeah, you got to be locked in like 24/7 with him. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that he, as long as he's done this, he still doesn't get enough attention or credit for the kind of shape he's in.
That's
and
crazy.
His ability to do that all the time. He'll just wear you down.
Yeah. He's not even like sweating or anything. That's crazy. You look at him, you're like, damn, man, you just run for like a minute straight. Stop now. You got to chill at some point.
That was the Warriors championship teams with KD was like that, because it was like he'll do that and Clay will be doing that. Yeah. And Draymond, they'll be running off Draymond. And then the second you're like, they go out of the game, then you just got to deal with KD.
Exactly. That's crazy. I'm happy I was not playing at that time, man.
So when you think about the future, well, I guess I'm kind of curious when you think about the future of the program, of the French program, because I think already people that are paying attention to this are like, it's a long ways away, but 28's in the US, but like, I think we know who's going to be there outside of the US. And so are there other younger guys that you're sort of like, that you just know and have played with, that you sort of feel like are ready to kind of like take the next step up onto that team?
Yeah, for sure. We had a couple guys who practiced with us this summer. Like Nolan Traoré, who will be in this draft this year. We had Maxime Renaud too. I don't know if he will be in this draft or not, but he was like, he's a really good player. So yeah, we have a couple guys that are really good. Even like older guys like Gershon Yabusele, who's been killing it. So yeah, man, it's gonna be nice.
The Gershon, I mean, this is a thing to ask him, but I'm just like, I don't understand how he was not in the league.
Yeah,
because you see that, and he goes to Philly, and he's putting. Last 2 weeks, he's been putting up 25 a night.
Yeah. That's
like he's
crazy.
doing everything. It's not like he's just, doing the dirty work. Like he can really shoot.
Oh yeah, he can do everything. Yeah, you just like in the NBA, you just need a chance, and he took it. He took the opportunity and took advantage of it. So yeah, I'm happy for him.
What do you think the most underrated, under talked about challenge of being like a young player in the NBA is?
That's a nice question. I say the toughest challenge is probably like just staying healthy. You know, we had so many games, like flying so much, going to every cities. Yeah, just taking care of your bodies, like doing all the things, weight room, treatments, rest. Because yeah, when you get in the city, you gotta rest. You can get in the city at like 3 a.m. and have a workout at like 11, but you still need to sleep and everything. So yeah, the resting part is the toughest part.
I'm curious your perspective. You're in Victor's relationship. You're obviously really good friends, and you've played together since you were 12, 13 years old. Your perspective on his growth now, just seeing, you know, we're heading into the All-Star game now. He's best defensive player in the league. You know, he's already kind of smashing all of these things that he should not be doing at this age and everything like that. You've seen this longer than, you know, anyone around here, that's for sure, and longer than basically anybody. And so your perspective just on his growth overall.
Oh, I'm impressed, but not impressed, because he always wanted to be like the greatest. You know, I always want to be the best one, and he's putting work. You know, he works a lot. He always want to be the first in the gym, and he learns a lot about basketball. Like even off the court, always reading stuff. So yeah, I'm impressed, but not impressed, I'll say. Yeah,
I think that I was going to ask you about your level of intensity and how much of that you've been able to just kind of learn from him, and just how he treats every, you know, I've seen this, like, just, we did the show with him, just knowing people, you know, around him, work with him, things like that. Like he's incredibly gifted. That's undeniable, but he also wants it, because there's a lot of people who are incredibly gifted who don't want it. And he clearly does everything that he needs to do all the time to want it. And how much you feel like that's been able to like rub off on you in terms of those lessons.
Oh yeah, he wants it for sure. Like when I was playing with the Mets and he was playing with me too, it was my first year as a pro, but it was like his third year as a pro. So he knew all the little things about being a real pro. You know, I was coming in the gym and I was seeing him like already working out. I was like, man, I need to do better too. So yeah, was just watching him work out early in the morning. I was like, man, I got to get up earlier too. So yeah, I learned a lot.
It's interesting, and this will happen. I think this will keep happening with you, with other guys in the league too, as you go on. Like we did a app last week with Austin Reeves in LA, and he was talking about LeBron, and he was basically like, he started to learn this with LeBron, where LeBron always beats everybody at the gym. Yeah. And so Austin tried to get there at like 5:30 because he was like, he's not going to be there. He gets there, LeBron said. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to get there at 5:15. He's not going to be like LeBron said. So finally he gets like the one day that he gets there like 4:45 and he like beats him there. And then basically the next day finds out about it and is there like a minute before. And you just can't teach that. Like you just have to be built like that to want to have that, you know, ethic.
Exactly. Yeah. You gotta you can't just become like that just one day like that. Nah, you gotta be like that from day one. And that's how it's been. That's how Wemby's been. So yeah.
What was your initial thought when you heard about that trade the other night?
Oh man. It was actually after our game against the Timberwolves. So we were at Rudy's house. We were eating with Alex Sarr. And Alex was on his phone, and at some point he's just like yelling. We're like, "What's happening, bro? Chill." And he's like, "Man, Luka got traded for Davis." I was like, "Bro, stop. That's not true. Show me your phone." So he shows me. I'm like, there is no way this is happening, because like at some point, like we can all get traded. Everybody should be like chilling. We can all be traded. Everybody was shocked. Like me, Rudy, Alexis Agensa was here too. We were like shocked.
I think that's the big takeaway lesson of all of this. I was with Mikhail. Because they played the Lakers that night. Yeah. And we were going to the Lakers hotel to go see some of them. And we were in the car on the way over here. And the big lesson, he already got traded once this year. And the big lesson was literally like, oh yeah, this could happen. Like if it happens to these two,
oh man,
it can happen to anyone at any point.
Everybody, man, it's crazy.
Yeah,
and still can't believe it. I need to see him play. I can't believe it still.
So, as we're sort of coming up on All-Star, and we're kind of like rounding into form for the end. Do you have specific goals? Are you somebody who's like, I want to do X, Y, Z I mean, from a team perspective, obviously you want to win, you know, and so that's a thing that's everyone's going to have. But are there things that if you feel like you've kind of hit as an improvement, you're going to just be you're never satisfied, but you're going to be closer to satisfied by June?
By June, yeah, just getting, like you said, a lot more wins, you know. I want the team to learn a lot more too, like the rooks. We got a lot of young guys, so I just want everybody to keep learning. I want everybody to stay involved. I know it's been tough, like losing a lot, but yeah, what we want to do at the end of the day is winning. So yeah, I want everybody to win and to work to so in the next few years we can be that team we want to be. So yeah, I just want to grow from everybody.
There's been a lot of discussion. We talk about the show a lot about like the NBA with the three-point shooting and how the you know, depending on what team strategies are, the game has to change. Do you feel like you on a personal level have to pay attention to that, or you kind of just like, if I do my, because you're locking up, and nobody can stay in front of you, so like, are you kind of just like, if I do my thing, it doesn't really matter what the trends of the league are or anything like that, because there's always going to be a place for me to succeed?
Oh yeah, I always trying to do my thing. I want to be a good two-way player, a great two-way player, and yeah, I do everything to be that guy. So yeah, I'm not trying to change my game because the NBA is changing or anything. It's not my thing. Like, I just want to be myself, enjoy my game. And yeah, I know that being what I'm supposed to doing what I'm supposed to do will help the team to win. So, and that's what I want. You
know, before we close, if you want to kind of just like give some flowers if you're your teammates, because I feel like you guys I feel like this is a group that there's a lot of talent on it, and it's something that, you know, we talked about the Shea thing before. It's like the games aren't all national TV. You have to basically hope that everybody gets to watch, you know, and I think one of the things we even want to do with the show is like spotlight that more, you know, and make it for a fact where it's like there are still, you know, thousands of people that are going to these games every night. There's still thousands of people, hundreds of people that are watching the games every night. And so just like, you know, I think everybody knows how good Jordan is, you know, guys like that, they've sort of, but even with some of the younger guys that you just see working every day, if there's stuff that you've seen that you just are like, they're coming.
Yeah. I want to, give a big shout out to all the rookies, you know, because I know how tough it is. Like I said, last year I've been through that too. And just seeing him like every morning go to the gym, even though it's not like, it's optional, you know, you're not supposed to go when you play like 34 minutes the night before, but everybody comes to the gym, keep getting shots up, working on everything they got to work on. They work on their bodies, they're listening whenever I'm talking to them, whenever anybody's talking to them. So yeah, they've been doing a great job, and yeah, you can see that through the games. Like, they've been growing, they're getting better each and every game, and yeah, I hope they keep doing the right things.
I think that's a good way to wrap it. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
See you this summer.
Appreciate y'all.